Hello, everybody. I'm Michael.
I'm Jamie. Hello again.
And yeah, today is the Chariot.
Yes. So this should be interesting because I was thinking about this, but when we first started getting together, can I say that your knowledge has gotten that much more? So, we'd have our discussions. Mike would ask questions and things like that.
You'd ask questions, too.
I would ask questions. I know, but, but what I'm saying is that, the amount of knowledge that you've gained in the last year is just... So it's funny and what brings that up is we're sitting here talking about the notes. Mm-hmm. It's like, what are you going to talk about? Well, what are you going to talk about? And it's like, well, I got that too. And so, because normally I'll just sit here, okay, Michael, so tap, what's your notes? Right. And it's like, your notes are really...
Well, I've been researching this for quite a while.
I know. It's like, that is awesome. So, I'm just saying that you really are... really good.
We both are. Yeah.
But I wanted to just say that, you really are.
Well, I'll take it. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got a bunch of fun facts, especially this time around. So, but I'll let you start this time.
Well, no, go ahead, because I enjoy it. Because I want to focus on the fact that the big thing is Michael's making a deck.
That is true.
And that's what started this. And as we always say, it's like, because our significant others, our wives, we would get around the dinner table and we would talk about his new card. And they would stare at us and say, you're really not going to spend the next hour talking about that, are you?
Yes, we are.
So, yes, we are. And it would drive them nuts. So we just agreed that we were not going to talk about the tarot until we sat down together. And so we even sat here and it's like, so what have you got? And it's like, well, I found out something really cool. It's like, hey, what have you got? And it's like, it was so hard for us not to even start indulging.
We need to wait for the feed, but now we're live.
So I know.
Should I jump in?
Oh, go for it. Okay. Start right off.
All right. So, number 7, the Chariot. And this is the one of the cards, and you notice it's not called the Charioteer because it's all about it's an idea. It's it's not just a person, but it's the person in relation to the two horses or what have you pulling the chariot. It's the dynamic of all the people, not just the. It's not like a person. It's a dynamic.
Well, it's the vehicle. It's about the vehicle.
It's about the chariot.
So when they talk about it in the first initial poems, when they're going through the triumphal parade, it's not saying they wouldn't even call it the I wouldn't think based on as you were just starting off.
Yeah.
But they wouldn't probably even call it the charioteer then. They would probably call it Caesar. They would have a name. They would if this card was about a person, then. And I think the natural inclination would be to call this
somebody
Augustus,
right?
Caesar.
But they didn't. They called it the Chariot, and why? It's because it's not about a person. It's about the thing, the idea, and yeah.
Also about the idea, but it's also about the drawing because they're drawing the chariot.
Sure.
So it's not. So the idea doesn't come in until after the initial tarot is created. Then it becomes an idea.
Well, I mean...
Then it becomes a concept, then it becomes the definition as we go through that we have.
Sure.
So initially it starts out, this is just I'll even...
even with the earliest deck, the Visconti...
Start right off with the Visconti, and so this is just a celebration of, her wedding... And so, do you got the Carriel or do you have the other one? No, okay.
Same one. Yeah. So yeah. But in this one, it's not Caesar. It's not anybody famous or whatever. It's just a woman that's driving these horses. It's the idea of is more important than actually who this is. And the winged horses here are moving the chariot. And this leads me to when we were, who's going to bring it up? But the whole Play-Doh idea.
So we'll go for it. No.
All right. So
that's exactly it.
Yeah. So the Play-Doh had this idea. There's 3 parts to the soul, right? And there's the Charioteer, which is the driver. That's reason. And then you've got usually two horses, and often they're portrayed as one dark and one light. In this, they're both white. However, one of the winged horses is Appetite, and the other.
Hold on, where'd you get that from? That's not in the dialogues. That's not in Phaedrus. Because I actually went back and reread it.
Okay.
I've got Phaedrus. I've read it.
I believe you.
Oh, yeah. I was actually going to read a little bit of it.
Oh, jeez. We'll be here all night.
No, we have an hour to kill. We have an hour to kill.
No, correct me if I'm wrong, but Plato's idea was that there's 3 parts, and that
it's the nature of the soul.
Right. The soul is originally nurtured by the 7 virtues.
Divided the soul into 3, 2 horses and a charioteer.
Exactly. But the horses fought, and so they lost their wings. And by practice of the virtues.
Where did you get this?
This is from Robert Blake's book. He was deep diving into the history and the lore. He does usually pretty good.
I divided each soul into 3, 2 horses and a chariot. And this is directly from, but I just printed it out. And one of the horses was good, the other bad. The division may remain, but I have not yet explained what in the good. I have not yet explained what the goodness or badness of either consists, and to that I will proceed. The right-hand horse is upright and cleanly made. He has a lofty neck and an aquiline nose. His color is white and his eyes dark. He is a lover of honor and modesty and temperance and the follower of true glory. He needs no touch of the whip, but is guided by word and admission only. The other is a crooked, lumbering animal, put together anyhow. He has a short neck, he has a flat face, and a dark color, his gray eyes, blah, blah, blah. The mate of insolence, pride, shag-eared and deaf, hardly yielding to a whip or spur.
Well, that's an extreme description of I wouldn't be black and white.
This is what they would have, but this is what they based, obviously, this is what they're basing it on with the winged horses. And I understand what you're saying, but I mean, there is a...
But in Robert Place's proposed ideas, which I agree with, it was that the dark-winged horse is the Appetite, and the light-winged horse is the will. And so the driver, using mental power, he doesn't even have reins. He is...
Well, that's a paraphrase. He's paraphrasing.
He is.
Yeah, and that's fine.
But he's the reason, and he's driving.
Right.
So similar to that, you've got the winged horses, and you've got the charioteer here without holding the reins. So it lends itself to that idea of the 3 parts of the soul. And as I was saying, the soul originally was nurtured by the 7 virtues, but the horses fought, and so they lost their wings. But by practicing the virtues through multiple lifetimes, the horses can regrow their wings, can ascend, and be one with the divine again.
Sure.
So that's the whole idea of...
Yes, and so that the other part, he's paraphrasing this other part here too, which is now the winged horses and gods, all of the noble, but those of the races are mixed. The human charioteer, which is us, drives his in a pair, one of which is noble and of a noble breed, and the other ignoble and of an ignoble breed, and driving them of necessity gives a great deal of trouble to him.
Yes, because it's a conflict between his appetite and his will. Yep. So it's the higher calling versus what his...
Black and white, good and bad.
Well, I mean, that's a little bit too simplistic.
But we're going to... but the cards have a black and white in it to keep things simple, because the simple thing is we know what virtue is, and we know what vice is. And now we have to drive our chariot
and control them
on that balance
and control them both. Exactly. And it kind of lends itself back to the whole balance. You have to be in balance in order to be victorious. Just like the high priestess had the pillars, black and white, and in the middle you find that truth. So too the charioteer has horses, black and white, and by controlling them in the middle, he's able to find that balance that it's these repeating themes
Yep.
that the tarot is all about. It's like if you didn't quite catch it the first time, we'll try and smack your head up with it the second time. But yeah, so that's the whole concept, I guess, is that it's this. Because they used to call it the victorious chariot. It's all about victory and triumph and moving forward. But how do you do it? It's through balance.
So, okay. So, the chariot itself.
Yes.
And you were talking about the part about what they called it and everything.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting because I was looking. Did you look at Petrarch's Triumphal Parade? Did you look at that poem where it goes through? So it shows, the triumph of love, chastity, death, time, fame, eternity.
Right. So they think of the charioteer as chariot, chastity, which is triumphing over the last card, love, or the lower aspects of love. And so in Patriarch's poem, Laura is the female charioteer, and let's see here, and she's representing that chastity, the virtuous will over the temptation of Cupid and the passions and the baser natures. She's that
right,
and triumphing.
Right, and so when the tarot came out, when they created them and they created these images that we're used to, and we've got again the Visconti deck and things like that, they knew instinctively there was no reason to name these cards because they knew the order that they were supposed to be in. And an example is, and I was looking at the picture where it shows, the story begins with Cupid entering from the left, surrounded by the couples in love. Cupid eventually captured and bound by a woman in white, surrounded by a woman representing chastity. So that would overpower that.
Right.
Then death on the right side of the first panel gives all mortals, no matter how virtuous.
Yep.
The next panel begins with fame triumphing over death.
Yep.
And since one's reputation can live after death, time has the last word, and even the most famous will fade from memory, giving enough time. Petrarch's final triumph, eternity, is a vision. So there is our cards.
Yeah, and Jamie's talking about. So the tarot started off, some believe, as these parades. They're calling the triumph parades. One archetype triumphs over the next, and they would parade literally in down the street, and one would follow the next in the parade and trump the.
They were an imitation of the Roman triumphs.
Exactly,
which is what they were called,
exactly.
And that's where the tarot gets its name.
Right.
Triumph.
Yep. And then eventually, trumps, but I much prefer triumphs. It just sounds so much nicer. But anyway, the whole so you've got that order that as you go down the parade. But I mean, again, that is the early history, which is important.
Well, because and as I say, the reason why it's important is because then we start getting into somebody's concept, and they just made it up out of whole cloth, and then somebody else basing their concepts on that concept.
It evolves and grows.
And then ultimately, the 21st century is based on the falsehoods of the 17th century. But get validation over a period of time and meditation. I'm not saying that they're wrong.
Right.
I'm saying they gained their own validation.
Absolutely, they grew it, and now this brings me to a very interesting observation here. Okay. So Levi, who inspired many in the esoteric tradition, and he was 1860, so 19th century.
He didn't make the pants.
not that Levi.
Not that Levi.
but this Levi, he didn't actually make his own tarot deck, but he did make this card. And this card inspired many in the esoteric tradition. It is this is where he brings in sphinxes instead of horses, and he's got all this symbology that
that you start seeing in the future cards.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got these crescent moons on his shoulder blades, one waxing and one waning, and then that echoes the sphinxes that are black and white, one waxing, one waning. Now, when you get to the hold on. That's to come.
That's okay.
Okay. So then Worth comes along in 1889. So a little bit later, and he
here comes Mr. Worth's card.
Exactly. Now he follows Levi very closely. You'll notice that there's also the black and white sphinxes, or also the starred canopy, also the hand on the hip. There's it's slipping a little bit, but it's still there. So he follows it very closely. Then Waite comes, and you'll see some errors creep in. What do you notice about the sphinxes between these three cards? Do you notice anything? What is different between these two? Between
the Waite and these two?
Between these two and versus this one.
Oh, okay.
So
let's see. That's fun stuff. Okay. Yeah.
So look at the sphinxes.
I see that. Well, he's giving them a tail.
Not the tail.
Not the tail. Okay. So hold on. Let's see. So it's after Napoleon, but they've got a nose.
No. You're thinking too much.
I know.
Just look at color.
They're reversed.
Exactly. So Waite flipped them. So instead of the whole waxing, waning moon and okay, so you've got the waxing and the waning moon.
Oh, that's cool, yeah.
And it goes black and white, right? Just that's the way that Levi had it. That's the way that Worth had it. But Pamela didn't get that memo, and so she flipped it. And she's got, where's my card of that? Oh, here it is. So she accidentally flipped it, and so it's not corresponding with the waxing and waning moon, but at least they're black and white. But yeah, so that's the first thing that gets corrupted. Then the second thing that gets corrupted is he's got his hand on his hip, which is kind of making like that subtle 7 kind of thing, because it's the 7th card.
Yep.
And again, Oswald Worth carries it through.
Kind of has it there, but here's one that's from the early 30s, and he's really obvious.
He's really got it.
And this is a Czech. This was a Czech occultist.
And you go back to the Marseille, and he's really got it. So he's really got that arched hand on the hip. It's so all these things that's why when going back to the earlier decks, I'm making sure that I bring all those important things back, things that even Pamela, which as I love Pamela Smith, but she got some things. She wasn't as schooled in these. She wasn't the higher level Golden Dawn member, and Waite was kind of just rushing her to push this out. She did it I think in her whole deck in a summer. So it was like errors crept in, and now everybody says, oh, she's this is the deck to rule all decks, but it's not, and so I'm going back to use these older decks.
I have read it more than once that if Waite hadn't come out with this, that Worth's deck would have been the one to rule them all.
Yeah.
Which I don't know about that, because the
it was very popular.
The Italian deck, where'd it go? But I think that the Italian decks may have actually
that didn't come out until later. So the the Italian decks came out in
actually they were 1830. So
they were. I had 1893 here.
So this one here is 1831 to 1838 when it first came out.
Okay.
This one right here, the Italian deck was 1830. Where's my Italian deck? 1835. And then Oswald Worth was 1887.
Okay, I've got the ancient Italian one, which is this one, as 1893, Vachetta Tarot, or AKA the Ancient Italian.
This is the Sorel Valley Caesar Tarot, Ancient Italian.
But regardless,
Right.
regardless, Levi definitely came first.
Oh.
and then of the esoteric esoteric ones, and then Worth shortly after that, and then the other guys around that time. But but Rider-Waite-Smith didn't come out until much later, 1910, 20th century. So there's quite a jump for that. And it just became popular because of the whole 60s movement and everything. Everybody had, her deck. But yeah, 19th century, Worth and going back to Levi and that was definitely more prevalent at that time because the Smith hadn't been invented yet. Right. But anyway. So I wanted to go in,
go ahead.
Go into a little bit more.
Well, let's see. Did we cover all the history stuff? Game of Thrones,
keep going.
Triumph of Love, blah blah. We covered Plato. We already went into the representing the duality with the Plato. The Sphinxes have a long history representing mysteries. Good. Okay. Yeah. So
going back to the weight that everybody knows, you'll see she's got a wheel and a spoke on her deck. Now, again, this is something that comes back from an earlier version on the Worth and the Levi's version. You'll see it's an Indian lingam and yoni, which is kind of like a phallic and a dish,
a vagina and a penis.
Well, yes,
but I mean that's what they're representing.
That's
a representation.
Yeah. And so the spoke and the wheel is just another variation of that, but it's one.
I always thought it looked like a top also, and I don't know, I mean, obviously, or a dreidel maybe, I don't know, not quite a dreidel, but I mean, it looked like something you would spin, or a wheel and spoke, but yeah, he absolutely got rid of the phallic, and that's probably because of his strong Christian leanings.
It's possible.
He's going to remove anything like that.
Or just hide it a little bit more, and just, it's I gotta put it in there, but I'll take it one step more removed. So if you know what it is, it's there. But I'm not gonna. On my deck, I'm
gonna make it obvious.
Well, not super obvious, but I'm gonna have a dagger going into a cup, which is the great rite for what is it called? The Hieros Gamos, the divine marriage, which is basically another symbol of sexuality, with the sword being put into the cup. But I'm going to have that on the front of my chariot, as well as the. Oh, did we talk about the solar symbol?
Nope.
Not yet. Okay.
Nope. We haven't talked about the stars, the canopy.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to go into the more esoteric stuff now.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
Let's do that. So I've got. Let's see here. So the solar disk of Horus, which is right up there.
Yeah.
And that does carry over into the weight. But that's a very Egyptian symbol. It's the reminding us that this is a positive card. It's the positive side of the ego. So it's got that solar symbol on there.
Right. Which they skip in the originals. That's added in.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, in the early decks, you've got like a shield, or sometimes they'd put their the initials of the publisher or somebody in there. But yeah, that.
So they've added that.
That got changed.
And why is it that they added this stuff as they went along?
It's because people were reading into it.
Because they're seeing it as the original. They believe, a lot of this time is that they were so it's like they were trying to bring the tarot back to its original Egyptian beginnings.
Well,
so they add that, and they add the symbols and stuff. So yeah,
sure. Well, there
and that one and the solar, because you say the solar because you have all the Egyptian representation.
Right. That's the
Right.
god of Ra symbol, because they're linking it to that Egyptian stuff. But I mean, it's not that it's going back to the way that it was originally, because the Egyptian stuff came later in their heads, maybe.
Right. Well, that's exactly
Right.
it. This is what they felt that what they were doing is, this is the bastardization. That has nothing to do with the original Egyptian cards that Levi
here's
DeGeblin
Levi.
said. Yeah, that DeGeblin said, and Levi took it from DeGeblin. DeGeblin said, well, hey, it's just a fact. It's got an Egyptian heritage, where it came from, and it's like...
Well, I would call it a truth, not a fact.
Well, no, that's how he presented it.
I know.
And people just glommed onto that until Waite and other people finally came along and said, he is so wrong on that.
Well, no, actually, Waite's got the Egyptian stuff.
He does, because that is part of the rights of the Golden Dawn, because they were cosplayers.
Okay. They're a little bit more than cosplayers.
I know.
Just because you don't buy it, don't put
it's
them
not that,
down.
It's not that. I think it's coolish as all get out.
Right.
But I think that if I was back then, I'd be doing the same thing. Just because, they really love their outfits. It's
not just
and they got into the rituals and
yes,
everything
the
else.
ritual, absolutely.
I mean, part of the reason why the Golden Dawn was created, when they did the cipher manuscript that had the rituals in there, and they got to create their costumes.
That's what it is. It's the ritual,
and they were Egyptian in nature.
Well, they
were reviving Egyptian rituals.
They had great connection to these ancient truths, these ancient teachings that goes back to Egyptian times, and so they were connecting with that.
Well, hold on. How did they? Okay, when you say that,
not so that they're linking it to tarot.
They're linking it. Okay, but there is no historical connection.
No. Well, they're adding one.
They are creating a because it's like, you can't have a secret society if you don't have secrets. Right? So what good's a secret society if you go ahead and publish everything? So that is the point there, is that so their doctrines, their teaching, the cipherment, all this stuff was secret documents handed down that made the connection that was not in existence at the time. And they believed it.
Well, the problem, and again, we seem to always have this thing, is you are framing it as a big swindle, whereas I'm framing it as no, they are connecting to these Egyptian truths, and they're finding connections in this tarot that they have on hand, and they're joining the two together, and that becomes the new thing.
And the difference is that I absolutely respect and that's all. But what I'm saying is that I also like to have my facts laid out.
Sure. And that's what we try. And that's what we're trying to do.
And I would rather choose to follow a ritual or follow somebody's belief,
right?
But also knowing that there is a historic reason for this that may not actually have a connection to the past. It's what they believe, and so they are going to reenact. It's
exactly
what they believe,
and that's I think modern tarot enthusiasts like us are able to convey this so that most so that people that don't know can know the difference between fact and truth. So the fact of the matter is that there was no Egyptian connection, but the truth of the matter is that they made it a connection. So they
did, but the fun thing is that if you read the pictorial key, he says directly in there is no Egyptian connection.
So he's the first.
No, he's not the first.
He's one of the first to admit it.
So
or to go against to give it.
Yeah.
To get one.
But they use those rituals,
right?
To help them make that
connection. Yeah,
I'm going to use the word correspondence because everything has a correspondence.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
if and this, I think this is kind of where you're going.
Yeah.
Is that if I have a correspondence, if I inhabit the dress, if I inhabit the rituals that I believe happen, then I am creating a direct correspondence where maybe I can have a connection.
Exactly.
So when I do automatic writing, when I do my when I dream, when I'm having my when I'm doing meditating, maybe the correspondence, because I've now created myself in this environment that I feel this is true. I feel like something's coming through me. Exactly. And there are people who can actually, they feel that.
Yeah.
They feel they're channeling it.
Yeah.
And they write it out.
Exactly. That's
so does that help you?
It does.
Because I'm the one who's not into the esoteric.
I know.
But I wanted to say
But you understand it. You understand it.
I absolutely, and I can use the lingo.
But as long as it's and I think that the only friction that we sometimes have is when it's not when you're trying to make it black or white, and then it's more gray. It's like it's but I think
it's kind of like science. Okay.
Well,
it's black and white most stuff, but you always want to try and the only thing that disproves science is better science, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So I want the facts.
Well, but see, and to go back to the whole fact versus truth,
and then from there, I want to enjoy what other people's beliefs are.
Right.
Okay. I don't need to be deluded to enjoy somebody's beliefs.
Exactly. And that's to quote Indiana Jones, if archaeology, like science, it's all about facts.
You know what? We've totally drifted away.
Let me finish my thought.
Okay.
This is a good one. Indiana Jones. Come on.
Okay.
What was it again? He was saying archaeology is pursuit of facts, much like science. If you want truths, the philosophy department is down the hall or whatever. So it's truth is very different than facts. Facts are you whether you like it or not, a fact's a fact. Truth, one person's truth can be very different than another person's truth. So the esoteric truths might be different than the historic facts, but that doesn't mean that they're not true. That's my only anyway.
So back to where we were.
Yeah. Okay, so there's more things.
Did you have another?
I do.
Keep going.
Okay.
So I'm waiting to see if you point out the one thing that I didn't know, and maybe I should have, but go ahead.
Okay. Extra little things to think about. Alchemically, the Charioteer is often referred to as the offspring of the Red King, the Emperor, and the White Queen, the Empress. So if they got together and had a kid, it would be the Charioteer.
Oh my God.
And let's see here, and then going into the whole 7, there's the three-sided triangle. Mm-hmm. Inside a four-sided square is what you'll see on represented on the armor. So kind of you have to be a little bit in the zone to see this. But there's a triangle here, and it's also a square on its side that you can see with the Levi, and then carrying through.
Now point that out, because I was
so you've
responding to somebody.
So you've got a the square or the triangle, and then that becomes, in some decks you can see that even more prominently displayed. On the on the Rider-Waite-Smith, you've got the square. She doesn't have the triangle on there, but she does have the square. But it's the whole 4 and 3. The wand also has that triad and tetrad, combination, which is, and then you can also see it with the 4 pillars of the chariot versus the triangle shape of the charioteer. So it's that that 7 is the 4 and the 3. So you've got the 4 pillars, the triangle of the charioteer. You know, but the whole lit torch, driving to new possibilities, driving that divine fire, that is very important to represent that that drive is that wand. And going back to weight, he was saying, and he was referring to, who was he referring to? He was saying that it was a flaming sword because somebody had else referred to it. Oh, it was Levi. Levi had referred to it as a flaming sword. There's no flaming sword even in his card.
Right.
It's a wand. But they both referred to it. Weight too says, you know, and even in his notes he refers to it as flaming sword, but it's not. It's a wand. So in my my rectified tarot that I'm gonna have, I'm actually having. I'm still keeping it a wand, but I'm gonna have it on fire. So it's a flaming wand at least.
Right.
But some say that Worth kind of not Worth, sorry, Levi, you know, he's using those Indian symbols for a sexuality that kind of looks like a sword there. So he's kind of like working it in. He's like, oh, I said I was gonna have a flaming sword in there, so maybe I'll just put that in there, you know, or make it look like a flaming sword just to make it all come together. But I thought that was interesting. Right. But what's this thing that you caught? All right, tell me.
So I pulled the Secret Teachings of All Ages.
Manly Hall. A classic.
Manly man. Okay, so, and I was reading in here, and I wanted to see what he had. So the Secret Teachings, 28. It was his encyclopedia of esoterica
all
and things like
occult,
that. All things occult.
Yeah.
And so, the 11th, 8th, 5th, 6th, 7th card, okay. So the starry canopy of the chariot is held by the 4 columns. The card signifies the exalted one, the vehicle. The 4 columns supporting the canopy represent the 4 mighty ones who uphold the world, represented by the star-strewn drapery. The figure carries a scepter, okay, solar energy, soldier, okay. Where are we at here? Come on. The man in armor. Okay, I'm going to pull this out here. So the man in armor, and I thought this was really cool. And obviously I checked, and it's like, so Robert Place has got this mentioned in here also, but I never noticed the man in armor is not standing in the chariot.
What?
What? I don't understand. He's not standing. What is he doing?
What does he say?
But rising out of the cube, thus typifying the ascension of the 3 out of the 4, and turning the upward flap of the master mason's apron.
Interesting.
And turning up the flap of the master mason. So he is actually rising out of a cube.
Gotcha.
So, you know, this may have been known by everybody under the sun.
Yeah.
But that just changed my interpretation right there. I mean, when I'm looking at this, because when I'm reading the cards, I base my reading on that card, and I always say, what does the fool see?
Right.
So the fool would have seen that, because he's just looking at the obvious. He doesn't know better. He doesn't know better that it's supposed to be a person standing in a chariot. Fool would come along and say, I see somebody that's like, why is he coming out of that block?
Right.
And
that's definitely a Rider-Waite-Smith
yeah, absolutely.
Version of it, yeah.
Although, rising out of the block, so if you look at Crowley's, because you love Crowley.
I do.
And it shows him sitting there.
Sitting on
it and not standing.
Yeah.
So I figured he could like be levitating if he really wanted.
Sort of.
I know, but he's the only one I've seen in the esoteric cards that is not just quote unquote standing in the chariot.
Yeah.
He is actually sitting on a pillow or sitting on whatever it is.
He's just it looks like he's just cross-legged.
Right.
But
so I thought that was like fantastic.
That is. I mean, there will, and you'll notice oftentimes, even in this earlier decks, going back to Marseille, the wheels look like they're not going the right way, and the block looks very firmly planted on the ground. So I mean, it's not a very fast-moving chariot if it's moving at all. It's not quite.
It comes from their perspective at the time. It's like, let's face it, some of these artists
weren't the greatest.
They were not the greatest artists, right?
Yeah, but I mean, people then read into that and say, oh well, maybe it's not going, or maybe it's a solid block, because the artist drew it that way. I don't know. I personally like the whole winged horses with Play-Doh thing better than that, but that's an interesting. But that's the Masonic spin on that. That's kind of cool.
I can't believe I never caught that before.
Yeah, I didn't catch that he was actually. Yeah, if you look at the I didn't catch that. It's not that he's hiding behind it, but he's coming right out of that block, and I never caught that either. I caught that it was like a solid block sitting on the ground, but not that he was like halfway. His legs were like in cement. Right.
And so and that one right there is the so I've got that same deck, and I love that one because of the colors.
Yeah.
But that's almost like a redrawn one, and even she kind of realized when she looked at it what he was doing.
Yeah. Yeah. So going back to the original, let me just show that. It's definitely, he's not hiding behind it.
That's more obvious on that one than that one.
Yeah. Well, you can still see it, but yeah, so while she might be getting the color of the Sphinxes wrong, at least she's adding her own stuff.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of cool. But Waite describes that sword, the flaming sword, though. And
oh yeah.
And there's a lot of things that Waite describes that Pamela takes liberties on. So I mean it's interesting to see.
Well, she's an artist, and she had her own vision.
Exactly.
Which is one of the reasons why he thought. I mean, he knew she was young, but he thought she was in tune.
And she was. So even if she wasn't getting everything perfect, she was inventing her own mythology in a lot of, some of it directed by Waite, and some of it just coming out of her own connection to the creativity. But yeah, it's not that I don't like the Rider-Waite Smith. I do. I love it. But it's just there's this particular card. It's not one of my favorites from that deck. And let me tell you a little bit about some of the fun things that I'm doing with Michael.
Yes, that's
okay.
Right.
So
I wish we could show you.
I know. No, that'll come later.
Hey, Michael, tell us more about your deck.
Okay, so my deck is going to have, in addition to the winged horses, which I am going to do horses, I'm not going to do the Sphinxes, but I'm going to have one dark horse, one light horse, pulling, but not.
I'm sorry, you said they are going to be winged?
They are going to be winged, yes. And I've got the covered. The cover on top will have stars, as it usually does, but I'm going to have 7 stars to represent those 7 virtues that you have to practice in order to regrow the wings, to carry on, back to become one with the divine. So I've got those 7 stars represented on the tapestry, and that's something that Worth did. I think he's got 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Well, close. 6. But I'm definitely gonna have 7 on there. And then in the background, oftentimes you'll see a city, sometimes even in flames, as the conquered city, the victorious charioteer. So I'm gonna have on my
what deck are you referencing with the flames?
I'm trying to remember. So I know, you see the city in the background on the Rider-Waite Smith. but it's not in flames. I'm trying to remember which one had it in flames.
So do you feel that that's going to... so when I see a card like that, if I see that, instead of it being, we haven't gone into the true meanings of it yet.
Right.
But I would see that as conquering at all costs.
Well, it can be. And that's the negative aspects of this card, is that sometimes it's done for the right reasons and sometimes not always. And I like to give ways to read both positive and negative in every card, because there is no all good or all bad card. And so I like give little things that if you're reading and you pick up on something and that pulls out more, then it might sway a reading a little bit differently. You are not going to see it every time because it's going to be small and in the background. And I'm going to have it balanced. So on one side, I'm going to make it look like the tower on fire, from the later card, the tower. But on the other side, I'm not going to have it in on fire. I'm going to have this heavenly looking city.
Okay.
So I've got, and that is my reference to David Bowie. So in David Bowie's Black Star video, which is very, very occult and loaded with symbology, he has this Villa of Orman in the background it flashes to throughout the video. And Orman is Norwegian for snake, which is a symbol of life and immortality, that kind of thing. So I'm making the silhouette of my city on one half of the card look like that Villa of Orman, and the other half, and be positive, and the other half look like the tower on fire. So you can read the charioteer or the chariot as a victorious hero or a conquering, negative aspects, because there's both.
Right.
And depending on, it could be the ego, the positive side, with self-control and willpower can make any ambition possible, or the negative aspects where he's like burning it all to the ground and I'm going my way, nothing can stop me. So it's there's both aspects which are
right.
So important.
So are you considering then, as far as reversals, people who read reversals?
I mean,
like the Marseille deck, for the most part with Marseille, I don't do the reversals with the Marseille.
Mm-hmm.
When I go into more of a Rider-Waite style, I have some that are reversals, so I do read reversals.
Absolutely, and that would be something to jump out. If it was reversed, you would say, now it's time to pay attention to the Flaming City, if it was reversed.
Okay.
Depending on how you read. If you don't do reversals, it could still catch your eye.
Right.
That kind of thing. So, because, again, not all there's never a fully positive card or never a fully negative card. They're all mixed. So I like
that lion might bite her hand.
You never know. It's a wild beast, So I want to make sure that there's things in there so that you can read in many different ways. And one of the things that I forgot to mention is the water. So separating the city and the charioteer is this river of subconscious again, that is important.
And it's hard to make it out that it's there.
Yeah, but it's there. It's definitely there. So
I wonder if it's more in the original Pamela Coleman.
Yeah, so there's a river, and that so that you need to get it.
Yeah, Pamela Coleman really loved to put.
Oh, absolutely, and it all leads back to the High Priestess. So she's the originator of all that subconscious water energy, but those do carry through, and it's interesting that it's separating him from the conquered city. So it's like almost you need to be in tune and balanced in order to,
you can barely
move forward.
Make that out.
Yeah, but it's there.
So we were talking last week about the lovers, and so I guess we can actually start moving into more about, because we have a few more minutes here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
The meanings and stuff. So obviously the lovers is about choice. I'm the devil's advocate here. I love arguing, and I love bringing out different points. So
and that's half the fun.
Yes. So but to be able to move past the Lovers, to be able to make the right choice.
Right.
That's where, as you're moving through, and we talked about it again with that painting and with the poem, so it's the strength of will that you get from the Chariot as you're moving up to be able to make that right choice.
Exactly.
So if you can't make that, if you can't make that right choice, I always say, like, if I pull up a Chariot card and you're struggling, it's because you haven't finished with the card before it.
Right. And it's that whole idea of the horses are sometimes yanking in opposite directions, and they're fighting, and their wings fall off, and then they're not going to be able to rejoin the divine. There's definitely a possibility that will happen. It's only if the charioteer is focused and balanced, is he able to control the two and get the two horses to stop fighting and pull in the same direction and go on that right path. You're past the lover's choice, and now it's just further along. You're guiding those horses on the right path. You're on the right path now, but you got to keep on that right path, and they keep the horses from fighting. You got to keep going.
Right. Well, you didn't mention there's no reins.
No reins.
How are they moving these horses,
All
Michael?
mental. Everything is mental. So
it's that force of will that's able to do that.
Exactly.
Of course, in this situation, I always thought that was kind of funny because of the fact that it's like, these sphinxes aren't going anywhere. It's like, my will is not moving them very fast. But that is the concept.
And his feet are in the block of cement.
Yes, his feet are in a... But that is the concept, is that, yes, because here we have with the original one, yes, the horses are moving.
Yeah.
And they're pulling. And so, yes. And so the concept here is with the Chariot is that it's about... the strength of will, the strength to move forward, being able to move a mountain just by saying, I want that mountain moved.
Exactly. Anything is possible.
You can do it.
Yeah, anything is possible.
So, yeah. And another thing is that, can I say one of my peeves?
Please.
Okay. So, I have heard so many times that people do a reading, and they'll say, if you get the Chariot, hey, this might mean that you're going on vacation, or that or it means travel, or you're getting a new car. I've heard that so many times, and people out there, man, my cards are faulty. I need to return my cards, because yet have I gotten that new car, and yet have I traveled based on...
I'm sure that some people reading that it'll mean that.
I know. I
don't think that card would ever mean that to me.
I know. When I see somebody say that, it's like, and
that's an interesting spin.
It absolutely could mean that. I just think it's funny sometimes.
I'd love to have a car, please.
When I read these books and they give you these black and white answers that says, hey, this could mean you're getting a new car. It's like, yes! It's like, really?
I'm with you. That would make me go, that's an interesting take on it. Not quite how I see it, but...
Right, so, and another thing when I'm using this card, so yeah, so it does give you the will to overcome the passion of the lovers. So that's how we're moving up. That's how it's stronger in the triumph. And also, it's, the psychology needed for any addiction or a strong need for change is, and I have it here, achieving victory or asserting yourself. So when somebody is struggling with an addiction or struggling with doing the right thing, this is even a good card to use as a significator to find out what
willpower.
Yeah, what is keeping you from being able to move forward to psychologically, conquer whatever it is that you're struggling with, things like that.
Yeah.
And so that's another really good thing about this card, because this is the card you need when you're struggling with, some kind of a psychological burden or an addiction. I call an addiction that mindless something, because you don't know what it is. It's a mindless something that's pulling you, and you need to be able to conquer it somehow.
Right.
And you need the power of the Chariot. You need that willpower.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what it's all about. It's the mind over matter. The triumph over challenges. If fear, procrastination, addiction, you just put all that away and you ride on victorious, because that is the Chariot.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you're doing a read, what's crossing it? What is blocking it? So that's why if I'm using it as
Right.
a significator,
Yeah.
I will then do a cross card and say, what's helping or hindering? Well, this is what's probably blocking.
Exactly. And so important are the cards around.
Right, and I see the cards as a way of, like a psychological benefit, a help. It's therapeutic. I see cards as therapy.
Absolutely.
And so I want to know what's going to trigger, and so that card right there really is one of the ones that really focuses on psychological issues.
Sure. And overcoming them.
Yeah.
Victoriously.
Yep.
Triumphantly.
So what else have you got on any of that?
That's about an hour.
Yeah. Well, no, we got a few more minutes, and
Okay.
you know what my favorite thing is?
You want to do your favorite thing?
I want to do exactly like we were just talking.
All right, let's do it.
And that is, I want to use that in a reading. So is there a particular deck?
I have my worth here, which
Okay.
I would like to use, but which one would you like to use?
I am going to use. I'm going to stick with the Marseille.
Okay.
Since you're going to go into the 20th century, or the 19th century.
Yep.
I'll go back to the 17th.
Okay. Sounds good.
Actually, you know what? I have a feeling.
I've got a feeling.
Can you hand me the mystical moments? Because this is an interesting. Right there, no, underneath that brown case.
Got it.
The mystical moments. This has become one of my favorite decks.
It is a great deck.
And it's because she made the cards based on the concepts and keywords, and not
The Rider-Waite Smith, but
not using the Rider-Waite Smith
right,
as the
totally in
example.
her way.
So her chariot is actually somebody riding a snail, slow and steady. You're going to get there, but it's going to be slow and steady. It's not going to be fast. It's not about racing.
Right.
Oh, and a fact. While I'm doing this, so you see the sizes of the horses that are on these cards.
Oh, here we go.
So historically, and if you look this up, you can even it's in Wikipedia and all this stuff. Horses that pulled chariots, and the horses that a lot of people rode were the size of a pony. They were not these big, powerful war horses, because that is not what people needed back then. They needed just slow and steady. So when the chariots were getting pulled, or they're doing whatever it is they're doing, the horses were actually not these big monsters.
Yep.
So go ahead and do yours while I look for this card.
All right. So I've got my.
I got it.
You found it? You want to go first? Or you want me to go?
You can go first.
Okay. So I've got my Charioteer, putting him in the middle, and we're gonna just put two random cards side by side and see what the cards have to say about it.
Here's
Oh yeah, let's put it over on your.
Yeah, and then you can flash them to yours.
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, so we've got. Oh, look at that! The Two of Wands.
201.
I was actually getting this earlier for a reading on what to prepare me for this later on this week. And I was like, the Two of Wands. I'm like, yeah, I know, the Two of Wands show.
Oh, yeah. The 201 show.
But okay, so the Two of Wands to his left, and
The 9 of Pentacles.
9 of Pentacles on the right. Okay, so he is being pulled. And which way does he want to go? 9 of Pentacles versus 2 of Wands. So 2 Wands are all fiery, and that would lead maybe to lighting the city on fire. Maybe that's not the right way to go. But with the 9 of Pentacles, that's closer to a completion. That's getting the knowledge of the snake here. The villa of Ormond, leaning towards the right. If thinking of my card that you can't see, but so I would say that this is the you want to keep going forward, always keep going forward and towards the riches, and focus less on the fire, but your will and your focus is going to help you get there. So that's what I see.
Okay.
All right.
So
tell me what the mystical moments shows
here
you.
is this beautiful card here where it shows that she is doing the slow and steady. And I like these cards. This is a soft deck, so I have soft decks and I have hard decks. Last week I used the hard deck.
Yeah, right.
But this is my soft deck. This is one I like using for meditation. So the Chariot, so we see here that she's got the slow and steady pace that she's keeping. So if I was to look at this, then the question is probably about how can I maintain a momentum, how can I make something happen? And so I would do this and I would put the two cards here.
Yeah.
And if we are actually doing a real reading, I would probably do what's crossing this card. But we're not doing a real reading, we're just using an example.
Sure.
So I have the Hanged Man, and I have the Four of Wands. Okay, so we have her going here, and so with the Four of Wands reversed, the Four of Wands are about a celebration. It's like you're moving forward, you're at a point, you're almost at a halfway point, and so you can celebrate, but we have an issue here because we started out with the Hangman, and the Hangman in this situation like this, especially since this is a snail, the Hangman can be about patience, it can be about this, it can be about that, but I sense when I would see something like this is that the Hangman's what's dragging her. Okay,
Pulling
because the Hangman is, not moving fast enough. It's causing a delay. That the Hangman, you have to be willing to make sacrifices. You have to be willing to, it's about acceptance and sacrifices. And I'm not sensing with this any strong drive to move forward. And so the issue is that it's going to cause this delay. And then instead of arriving on time, where there can be this celebration, that there's a delay that's going to be caused. So I would have to ask, why do you feel the need to procrastinate? Why do you feel the need to just hang there, instead of doing what you need to do? So that's what I would see with this, and I would have the advice, and I'd go all through this. And
absolutely.
I'm actually curious, what is... Here we go.
Oh,
Ace of Cups. Okay. So, anyway.
Yeah.
But that is
And
how
then it becomes
I would use,
Yeah. I mean, I guess I was focusing more on what is the relation of the card as opposed to how I would see it in an actual reading. But I like I like where you were going with that.
So the hour is pretty much up.
Yes, indeed.
This was a lot of fun again.
Always.
We will have corrections because I'm sure I got a million things wrong with dates, times, places, meanings.
We try, but we're human.
Yeah.
Sometimes we make mistakes.
But I hope that you all got as much out of this as I did because, this has really, really just been helping me. And so next we're going to be moving to...
Wait for it.
We're going to be moving to number 8. Isn't that strength?
Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
Wait. It is strength. Isn't it?
No,
it's justice first.
Yes, justice. So
Justice.
we are going to be doing justice. We're going to follow the Marseille style.
Right. Marseille style. Yeah.
Because it's also following the triumphal parade.
Yes.
And it's also if my fool is going through. If I'm teaching the fool, then next up would have to be you've learned about your passions, you've learned all that, and you've learned about willpower. Now it's being able to apply willpower because again, we're still in a social situation. You know, right now we're going up with card 8. 1 through 8 is still a social situation.
Right. And
having strength there, that's
strength is next, right? Yeah.
Well, no, it's going to be justice, which is 8.
Justice is 8?
Yep, 11 is strength. The original way.
I thought I knew it, and then I'm just having
So
I'm off today.
Here's 11.
Okay, it is 11.
Yep. But Wade changed
so
it because of the astrological
thing. He saw the scales and thought, "Oh, it must be Libra."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
no.
even Oswald Wirth, and we'll go into. You know what? I'm not going to give any spoilers. I know why he did
next
it.
week,
You're going to have to pay attention because next week is not going to be strength. It's going to be justice.
Justice comes.
We're going to
next.
give justice to the Marseille.
Justice is due.
Thank you.
Yep. We'll see you next time. Next week.